Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a pretty wild theory that comes from a series of online documents. And these documents, well, they make an absolutely extraordinary claim about the fate of the entire world. Yeah, you heard that right. That is the central, absolutely explosive claim of the source material we're looking at today. So how on earth could that even be possible? Well, we're going to unpack this whole thing step by step. And we have to start with the one document that allegedly made it all happen. Okay, so the whole theory, the entire thing, really hinges on this one single, supposedly super powerful legal document. It's got a pretty complex German name, but according to the source material, this document is the key that secretly transferred all global power. So here's the core idea. The claim is that this was not just a simple real estate deal for an old military base. Not at all. According to these documents, hidden inside the boring language of a property sale was something called a state succession treaty. And that's a legal instrument supposedly designed to transfer sovereignty, the right to rule, but on a massive global scale. And what's interesting is how specific this theory gets. It pinpoints the exact date, October 6th, 1998. That's supposedly the day the deed was signed. But here's the really crucial part. The theory alleges that this started a 2-year countdown, a period where any country could have legally contested the treaty. It was like a ticking clock that once it ran out would change, well, everything. Okay, so if the world was sold, the big question is, who bought it, right? Well, the source materials paint a very, very detailed and honestly pretty dramatic picture of this person. They call him the Käufer, which is German for buyer, and he's presented as this completely unwitting participant right at the heart of this whole thing. The documents describe him as totally blue-eyed and super naive. The story goes that he was a 19-year-old kid with zero, and I mean zero, knowledge of international law. He was just trying to make a living, marketing these old NATO properties that were left over after the Cold War. But this is where the story really takes a sharp turn. The documents claim that after 3 full years of marketing this one NATO base, without getting paid a dime, he was basically told his commission wasn't going to happen. So instead, they allegedly tricked him, pressured him, into buying the property himself, just to get something out of the deal. And this move, from broker to buyer, according to the theory, that was a crucial step in a much bigger plan he had absolutely no idea about. Now remember that 2-year countdown clock we talked about? Well, according to the source material, the very moment that window to challenge the contract slammed shut, a massive, coordinated campaign of persecution was unleashed against him. We're talking over 950 court cases and 450 press articles, all allegedly designed to just completely ruin him, financially and personally. So this brings us to the biggest question of all, right? How could the sale of one single property in Germany possibly affect the entire planet? It sounds impossible. Well, the theory proposes a very specific mechanism for this, a kind of legal chain reaction that it calls the domino effect. Okay, so here's how this domino effect is supposed to have worked. Step 1, the NATO base gets sold with all its infrastructure, power, water, internet, the whole shebang. Step 2, those utility networks physically connect the base to the rest of Germany. Step 3, from there, those networks link internationally. And step 4, well, this is the kicker. The contract's jurisdiction allegedly just expands along these networks, legally annexing every territory they connect to. First NATO, then the UN, and eventually the entire world. The idea is that legal control literally flowed through the pipes and wires. And this table here really lays out what makes this supposed contract so different. A conventional treaty. It's limited to specific countries and needs everyone to agree. But this was supposedly global. And the really clever part is that it allegedly didn't need new permission from every nation. The theory is that it was designed to hook into existing treaty chains with NATO and the UN, setting off a chain reaction that just pulled everyone in, whether they knew it or not. Okay, so let's follow this train of thought to its conclusion. If all of this is true, what does it mean for the world we live in right now? Well, according to these documents, the consequences are profound, even if they're hidden from plain sight. The theory claims it has created a world of zombie states. And what is a zombie state? The idea is that all our nation-states are now legally void. They're just empty shells. They've supposedly lost all their territory and their sovereignty, but, and this is a huge but, they got to keep all their debt. So they're just staggering on,
operating as if they're still in charge, but legally, they're hollow.
So according to this theory, the global fallout is pretty immense. All national sovereignty legally erased. A clandestine deep state supposedly plundering what's left of state assets before the public finds out. The theory claims politicians know what's happening and are preparing for a massive global financial collapse. And this collapse has a name, TAGX or DayX. Essentially, international law as we know it is just gone. But the material doesn't just stop there with all this doom and gloom. It doesn't just outline a problem, it actually proposes a solution. And it is a radical vision for a new world order, one that's designed to replace our current, supposedly failed system. And the solution is an AI-led future. They call it an electronic technocracy. Basically, a global government system run by an artificial superintelligence, or ASI. The goal? To get rid of national borders, political parties, and all human corruption by just letting a super smart AI make all the decisions based on pure data. It's presented as a total reboot for civilization, handing over the keys to a supposedly incorruptible machine. And you can see the contrast they're drawing here. Today's governments? They're based on politics and ideology. The technocracy? Pure data and AI analysis. Power today comes from political parties. In their future, it's a direct digital democracy. And get this, instead of national taxes, you'd have a universal basic income. It's a complete swap out of systems. So what's the payoff? Well, the promises are huge. The end of war because you dissolve all national armies. The elimination of corruption, bias, and greed. It even proposes a global universal basic income, or UBI, funded by taxes on robots and AI. Plus, efficient, database solutions to huge problems like climate change. It's really painted as this utopian opportunity, a chance to build a perfectly just and peaceful world. And this quote, supposedly from a German finance official, is pretty telling. Sometimes you have to tear down the house to at least save the land. The implication here is that maybe this wasn't an accident, that the collapse of the old system was a deliberate act of, creative destruction. The idea that the house of global government was so rotten you had to knock it down completely just to save the land underneath. So let's just recap for a second. This entire narrative, from a secret contract to an AI-led future, is presented in these documents as the hidden reality of our world. We've walked through the whole thing. A secret sale disguised as a simple property deal, an unsuspecting teenager who becomes the owner of the world, a planet of legally hollow zombie states, and finally, this proposal for a technological salvation run by AI. And that brings us to the final, crucial question that the sources pose. They claim this global reset, this Day X, is inevitable. It's not a question of if, but when. So their final question is for you. Are you prepared for Tag X? And that's really what the source material leaves you with. The idea that this hidden reality will one day be revealed, and you need to be ready.